can hear me. All right, welcome folks to the Town of Mount Pleasant Planning Board meeting, regularly scheduled for November 18th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. We have a number of items coming up. To categorize them, we have business items where we discuss things that we've reviewed in the past, and then we've had continuing public hearing where we've had applicants come to us and we've reviewed different items and we continue to review it for to judge its merit and all of that good stuff. So first up should be a relatively easy item, acceptance of minutes drafted from the 11/7/2024 Planning Board meeting. Any questions or comments on board? Now, the board did receive notes from staff with those minutes, and we have reviewed them. There's been a few comments back and forth, but I think we've reviewed them quite a bit, and I think we're probably ready to make a decision on those. Any questions or comments on the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Motion from John.
Second.
Second from Jane. Walter.
I have to abstain. I didn't attend that meeting.
Okay. Jane?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Joan?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
And an aye from me. Okay, next up, request to amend resolution of approval for site plan SP 23-07 for the development of vacant parcels located at Bradhurst Avenue and Brighton Avenue in Hawthorne for the construction of an approximately, there's a typo here, it's not 3,000 square feet, it's 300 square feet. Business office with storage barn. Additional improvements include, well, the business office is not 3,000 square feet, so I think we have to adjust that. Additional improvements include driveway parking area, stormwater mitigation facilities, landscaping and screened areas. Applications include subdivision ST 23-04, site plan SP 23-07, site steep slopes SS 23-13, SBL 1112.9-1-2, and 3 owners Brighton Avenue Properties LLC. For this one, do we have the applicant here tonight to talk about this? Can you come on up? And let's kind of dig into this and figure out what we're doing here.
Hi, Vincent Di Pasquale. I'm partner in Brighton Avenues LLC. We just would like to clean up the verbiage on line 13 a little bit. Seems the way it was written is a little confusing. We don't want to have any confusion down the road. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it.
I did.
Okay, so we felt it does the same job, just a little bit clearer, where nobody could get confused.
Can we just review it just for those people who are listening and for the people who are in the room tonight? So exactly what we're doing tonight with that verbiage itself.
Correct. We're giving a concession for a dump truck with an open bed larger than 2 yards with a hydraulic lift. Won't be on the property, either parking or moving or anything.
Do you have the verbiage there?
Correct, I do.
This is six-wheeler. It's a landscape truck?
Any type of dump truck with a...
So I'll just read it out so people know. So it's 1 versus 2. Okay. Okay, so the approved condition for number 13 was dump trucks used as part of the business operation and that utilize a hydraulic lift to raise and lower the dump bed are prohibited at this site. Dump trucks that have a haul bed of under 2 cubic yards that do not have a hydraulic lift shall be permitted. This prohibition applies to operation, park, and storage versus what's the requested condition, which is dump trucks used as part of the business operation that utilize hydraulic lift to raise and lower the dump bed and have an open bed capacity of more than 2 cubic yards are prohibited. This prohibition applies to operation and park and storage. Okay, so that's the language request modification.
Correct.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
And why are we doing this?
Just so that there's no problem down the road where somebody can misconstrue the verbiage and what we conceded to give up.
Okay, so when we came, this was a big application, as you guys know. We double-clicked into this for a long time. We went to a point where we had Long Green, and then we were going to use the facility for something else, some other facility. And does this suggest that Long Green's going to actually be on the site?
No.
Okay. So this is going to be some other business, because how do you know what kind of truck needs to be used based on the type of business that's not there yet?
Correct, we don't. So we want to make sure the concession is for a dump truck with an open body with a hydraulic lift, which is what we conceded.
So the
We don't want, in other words, if a tow truck happened to pull on there because somebody's car broke down and a neighbor saw it because a tow truck has a open body with a hydraulic lift, we don't want somebody to construe that and call the town and have a problem.
It's a flatbed?
Correct. The way it's written on the first line, it seems that it can be confusing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It kind of goes around in a circle.
Yeah.
Can you tell me where that resolution condition 13 came from, the language?
Your board's discussion. So the intent was to prohibit dump trucks
Okay.
on the site. It was not to prohibit a pickup truck, for example. So that's why the hydraulic lift prohibition exists, and the 2 cubic yard capacity, which is a typical F-150 kind of pickup truck, was permissible.
Right, and I remember this conversation, and I was pretty clear when the residents were here. There's dump trucks and there's landscaping trucks that are 6-wheelers that you could park anywhere. We're not talking about coming with a 10-wheeler that has a huge bed on it to dump and remove stuff from the thing. I mean, a truck like that is everywhere. I mean, it's in all our neighborhoods. People use it to go to work every day. So I don't know if he wants it. I don't see an issue with it, but I could see why he wants to change the language, because I'm sure they're going to be watching every move they make.
But just to be clear to the applicant's point, a tow truck arriving is not part of the regular business operation, so that would obviously be exempt from any limitation.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how comfortable I am with me, just as one person, with the amount of scrutiny that this application got over a period of probably, I forget now, 6, 7, 8, 9 months of making this change without engaging the public in a public hearing. That's me, and I'm just one board member up here, because this may seem innocuous to everybody, but we've had a great deal of public scrutiny on this, and this board has gone through a lot to get it to where it is, and opening up this box at this point and not engaging the public at this point, to me, would create a lot of problems for this board. If we want to do that, we can do that, but that's just me as one board member. But we'll see what the other board members think. Come on up.
Yeah, I think Mark DeFabio, partner
Yep.
in Brighton Property. I think the only thing that worried me when it was the second sentence, I just want to make sure that it doesn't pertain to other types of trucks other than a dump truck. You know, a box truck is going to have over 2-yard capacity in it. A flatbed that doesn't dump is going to have a 2-yard, more than 2-yard capacity. So I don't want it to be restricted to other trucks. And the second sentence, I just feel like kind of, makes it a little bit ambiguous, that's all. We just want to clear it up, that's all.
Can I answer the question so it's pretty clear? Is this a truck that's going to hold material? Like, I get deliveries, and you're getting a delivery of sheetrock.
Right.
Are you talking about a flatbed like that to
Well, any
drop off
type of
material?
truck, other than a dump truck, a big dump truck that's
Big
dumping
dump truck is
gravel and things like that.
Different story. We already
Right.
told that's not allowed.
Right,
But you're talking about for delivery purposes?
sure, delivery purposes, or if, say, I rent it to somebody that has different types of trucks, not dump trucks, just that 2,000, two-yard
Yeah,
capacity, I don't want that to be a restriction unless it's a dump truck.
It was never your intent to limit the flatbed truck or any of those other trucks. It was
Yeah.
your intent to limit dump trucks.
Dump
So I
trucks.
think the 2 cubic yard dump truck
I got you.
is.
What, like, I remember Mr. Plaza saying about a pickup truck that dumps. It's like a little truck or whatever. I don't know whether that falls into it also. That's all.
Yeah, the part, if you remember, part of the conversation about the dump truck was related to the storage of materials on the site.
Right.
So the applicant had
Gravel.
committed they would not do that. A way for you to ensure that would never happen is to prevent trucks that deliver gravel to the site from
Right.
being used
Correct.
on the site. So that was connected to the condition.
Yeah, we don't want to open up a whole thing.
Yeah,
you know.
but
We
we're,
just want to
Just
make
to
sure that
clear-
it's
So that's
clear.
clear for both sides.
no, I hear you.
And how do you, when you read the line, how it's written out, how do you interpret that line?
It's mostly the second line, right?
The whole paragraph.
Dump trucks used as part of a business operation and that utilize a hydraulic lift to raise and lower the dump bed are prohibited at the site. So that means anything that uses the hydraulic lift, you can't use. Right? That's number one, right? Dump trucks that have a haul bed of under 2 cubic yards that do not have a hydraulic lift shall be permitted. So you're under 2 cubic yards and you do not have a hydraulic, shall be permitted, which is basically a regular
Pickup
truck.
truck.
Right. This prohibition applies to operation of park and storage.
There's no, and period, there's no other prohibition of other trucks other than dump trucks. Both of those sentences relate to dump trucks.
Versus what's proposed, again, I'll read it one more time so people hear, because I feel like I'm in my
know, it's
middle school English class. Dump trucks used as part of the business operation that utilize hydraulic lift to raise and lower the dump bed and have an open bed capacity of more than 2 cubic yards are prohibited. Okay, so this prohibition applies to operation of parking storage. So it appears the biggest concern is the second sentence versus the first one, because the first and second sentence are pretty much the same, right? Because you're prohibiting the bed.
Correct.
Right? So you're concerned more about,
The contradiction, when I read the paragraph, the way it's written out, the two sentences seem to contradict each other.
right? Okay. What are other thoughts and questions from board members? I have some thoughts on this, but I want to hear what other people have to think.
I think the requested change is reasonable, because the first one throws in another truck, and there are many, many other types of trucks that would be permitted. So the first draft, if you will, just singles out one type. I think the second draft, where we just say what's prohibited, everything else is permitted, is all they're saying. I don't see the ambiguity in that. The first one might just,
As another board member, I don't see a problem with the change.
I also don't see a problem with the language from the beginning, though, to be honest. I don't think it's going to create a problem for you down the
I
road.
agree. We were just picking it apart that a lawyer might do if somebody could,
Yeah, no, I-
called and complained. And I know that we're all on the same page here, that we all understand what we conceded. Just didn't want to have a lawyer 10 or 15 years down the road pull this out and say, hey, wait a minute, and twist the verbiage around. That
No.
was our only concern.
Then we should have a problem with half the landscapers that are working that area that all have dump trucks with hydraulic lifts on it.
I understand.
You know, I can understand you want it cleared, and I really, you know,
But then the question becomes, what is the mechanism to clear that language, right? I mean, we may think it's nice and we may think it's innocuous, but is it something the board should do, is make these changes after the public has left the room and make these changes? I think that would put this board in a little bit of a disingenuous spot. As innocuous as we think it is, my take as one person here tonight is we need to think about having this, engaging a public hearing. Because how do we make this change post?
they
Post.
say the same thing. Basically, the second was just a little more straightforward than the first. The first one is giving you something that could be permitted, but a lot of things could be permitted. There's some things that probably haven't been invented yet that would be permitted, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
So all we're doing is trying to keep the big dump trucks out of there. And I think the requested language part that they have requested does exactly that. And I don't have a problem with it.
I'm not overly concerned about the language change itself. I'm just concerned about the mechanism about changing it.
Well, we often do that,
Now,
edit.
You modify resolutions.
We
it's by-
modify
it's by vote,
resolutions
whether
all
you
the
choose to have a
time. If
public
we had to
hearing.
have a public hearing every time we modified a resolution, we wouldn't accomplish anything here.
yeah. Okay, any questions or comments from other board members? Okay, so we have a business item here, folks. We reviewed it tonight. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to change the requested language.
Motion from John,
Second?
second from Eileen. Walter?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
John? Joan?
Aye.
And a nay for me.
Eileen doesn't get the vote.
Aye.
Eileen, I'm sorry, Eileen, I skipped you. It's been a long night. It's been a long day. All right. We're gonna move on from that, Eileen. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Chips fall where they may.
Yes. Continuing public hearing. Propose One Point Place construct a series of mezza retaining walls, thereby creating a usable rear yard configuration, including a pool. Application steep slopes SS 24-05, location One Point Place, Chappaqua, New York. Section block numbers 99.10-2-3.42, zone R40. Zone R40, owner and applicant Doshi J. and Supriya, 50%, Doshi Vinay and Vasanti, 50%, engineer AE, professional engineers, PC. And this is a continuing public hearing, so we've waived the public hearing already. I think, just to summarize for the public that's here tonight, we had a couple marching orders for you to review, and I think you've reviewed them. One was the type of bushes we're going to plant, one was how we're going to mow the lower area, and I think also the landscape plan overall. And was there anything else that we had for this application? I think that was it. Okay, so let's hear it.
Good evening, Peter White, A&E Engineering. At the last meeting, yes, we discussed the type of, what the discussion was about with these arborvitae. And initially, the ones that we had shown had too big of a base to fit between the wall and the property line. We went back to Shemin's Nurseries. They advised us that there is a narrower plant, still gives you 20 to 22 feet in height. We then specified that, put it on the drawings that were submitted this morning. And as for the area, directly below the wall, which we discussed, this area down in here, this area basically is going to be covered.
Do me a favor, because you're saying such wonderful things. Can you just grab the mic so the public can hear you?
Yeah,
And you know, the world wants to hear what you have to say. Just pull it right off. There you go. Thank you.
we had a discussion about what's going to happen with this kind of dead area down here at the very bottom. And it's going to be planted in either Pachysandra or Crown Vetch and left to the bunny rabbits and whatever. It's just going to be
Eaton. Yeah.
left as a planted area. The rest of this, of course, obviously is landscaped. There are trees and so on and so forth. And that was what we discussed at the last meeting. And then you suggested that we come back tonight.
Yep. And just to summarize, we have a sign off from Dave Smith on the wall itself. We have a letter from the HOA saying that they're not concerned about the application, and we, to date, have not heard anything back from the public, correct? Correct. So we've notified the neighbors, the adjoining property owners, and we put you through a little bit of a process, but we put you through this process because we want to make sure that we dotted the i's and crossed the t's.
I delivered to Mr. Archino, by the way, this morning, 4 executed sets of drawings with all of this information that's been updated as we discussed.
Okay. So any questions or comments from board members? Now's the time.
What's the, replacing the trees, what are you replacing them with, another?
What we did was we put in 4 specimen trees to be planted as part of the construction. The owners expressed a desire to plant some fruit trees, which we don't specify, but there is also a garden area that's being proposed for here.
Not those, but the green giants, you're not doing green giants, are? my
No, they're not
concern is
green
that you're
giants any
doing-
longer.
Are they deer tolerant?
I've been doing business with Shemin's for 40 years. They tell me that these things are deer resistant. To be honest with you, I've lived in Westchester for a long time. I think deer will eat nuclear waste if it's left in the right place. But
I agree with you.
I agree.
yeah, at the end of the day, they do claim that these things are not necessarily desirable for deer. And they have a much narrower base. So that, because we only have about a 5 to 6 foot area between the wall and the property line. So the idea was, and this was suggested by Mr. Collins, that we look for a narrower, but again, tall arborvitae, and that's what we have along this bottom line down here, to kind of shield this from the property below.
And I think it's, you would have to have some pretty athletic deer
To get there.
to get up on those walls.
They're pretty athletic, that's from what I could see of them, but anyway.
So,
But the trees are being planted at grade level, right? They're not on top of one of the walls, they're at the base of the last wall.
Actually, they are.
between the walls.
They're being planted, in
No,
the,
not
in
those,
the
the emerald
regraded
green.
areas.
The arborvitae, the green wall that you're planting,
The
is that?
arborvitae are being planted, that'll be a graded area in front of the wall. The
Okay.
arborvitae being planted
Because if it
there.
was on top of the wall, we would see the
They're
wall.
not on top of the wall, they're in front of the wall.
So I'm sorry to interject, but, so there's layers of walls, or 3 walls, right? Are we
Yes,
planted
there's-
between
you
the
have-
walls?
You have a wall here, you have another one here, and then finally this one. And the reason that this wall is here is in order to create a level area to work with for this wall.
Where are the green trees, the evergreens being planted? At the bottom of the last wall on the
At
left,
the bottom of the
correct?
last wall, between the last wall and
So the
the,
deer do not need to be athletic.
I see
And
that.
So one of the things that I'm concerned about is, should those be delicious and eaten, can there be an ongoing obligation on the part of the property owner to replace any dead or dying or eaten trees?
Yeah, so
Yes,
that's a
that would
standard
be- that would-
condition
that would be a
we
given.
impose on any resolution.
Okay,
and usually when you plant 20 or 25 of these things, what you end up with is 1 or 2 of them die off and they have to be replaced.
Yeah,
You know, that's kind of a given.
okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? Now is the time to jump in.
And Jane, just to be clear, he did specify the new arborvitae variety in the plans that were submitted today.
Okay,
Okay. Let the record show there's no additional questions or comments from board members. Now, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here tonight for this application at One Point Place in Chappaqua, New York, to discuss this application? If so, please raise your hand. Let the record show that nobody here is tonight to speak to One Point Place. Let the record also show that we've received no comments from from neighbors or adjoining property owners on this application, and that we did receive one letter from the HOA saying that they were not opposed to the walls, the structure, and the whole project. Okay, with that being said, what is the pleasure of the board with this particular application?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Motion from Joan,
second.
second from Jane. Walter,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Eileen,
aye.
and an aye from me. Okay, so we've closed the public hearing. What is the thought on this application from there?
I'll make a motion, we direct the consultant to draft a resolution of approval for the steep slopes permit.
Motion from Joan,
Second.
second from John. Walter,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
and an aye from me. Okay, I think you're good to go.
Thank you very much,
Thank-
all of you.
Thank you. And just a little comment, that you know, sometimes we have several meetings to get the application to where we wanted to get it to, and I think we did do that, so the process worked.
No, I'm glad that we've gone through it and gone through it thoroughly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Hope
Okay.
to see you again next time.
Next up, which is also a continuing public hearing, which means we're here for the public to hear from the public. But before we hear from the public, let's hear from the applicant for 420 Nantahagen Road. Proposed 1-lot into 2-lot subdivision for the purpose of developing a new single-family dwelling. Application subdivision at PSD 24-1, location 420 Nantahagen Road, Thornwood, New York. Section block line number is 107.17-2-16. Zone R4. Owner applicant is Nantahagen 420 LLC. Architect is Spearman Architectural Design PC. Attorney is Philip Grimaldi. Welcome, Mr. Grimaldi.
I'm going to recuse myself. I have I'm a professional conflict with this.
Okay,
And
sure.
just a quick comment,
Go ahead.
because we've already opened the public hearing for this, we don't need to waive the public hearing for this, so this is a continuing public hearing, just so the public is aware of that fact. Mr.
Okay.
Grimaldi, thank you.
All right, well, as you know, the controversy about this is the fact that we're using Davidson Drive as our access and our frontage. We could go back and forth forever with these letters. I know last week, the counsel for the neighbors submitted a letter. I submitted my response this afternoon. And the last time we were here, when the public hearing was open, you had requested a legal opinion from the town attorney as to whether we could use Davidson Drive and whether that was sufficient for frontage, to satisfy the frontage requirements of the code. And he reviewed everything, and he said that he agreed with us that we could use Davidson and that we had the sufficient frontage. We need 50 feet, and we have more than that. So, again, the other point that I had made is that these issues, which are legal issues, are not within the scope of this board to determine. Those are legal issues that have been resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. We were before the board on 2 occasions, the ZBA. The neighbors had ample opportunity to object, to appeal the determination. They did not do so. This board is basically concerned not with legal issues, but with preparing the land for subdivision.
So, Phil, just detail the process. So this applicant went through the ZBA,
Yes,
and that was like, what, how many months ago?
that was about 6 months ago.
And so, was there a sign of the property and public notice, all
Yes,
that?
everything was,
And then, I'm sorry, and then we went
Go
through a public hearing again for this,
yes,
and we had a sign of the property, we had public notice, and all that went out?
yes.
Okay,
yes.
just want to make sure we say that.
So, right, that's fine. So, again, it's our position and it's the town's position that Davidson Drive is a street. We have a right to use it for public access, not only because it's a street, but because we have an easement that was created 55 years ago. There's not much more I could say, Mr. Collins. Ultimately, this is a legal issue, and again, we don't feel that this board, or we know that this board cannot determine the legal issues. They've already been determined. And your issues deal with whether we could contain runoff, whether our access is safe, and that's really it. And you know as well as I do, if we used the existing driveway on Nanahagan Road, nobody would be here because nobody would care, because the neighbors already said that they don't care if we use the existing driveway, they don't care if we build another house. But what they do care about is they don't want us using Davidson Drive.
Okay.
And again, and I have Mr. Buffamonte with me, Robert Buffamonte. He's one of the principals of the owners, and he could address the more planning-related issues that this board generally, considers, rather than the legal issues.
Okay, and thank you. So, one quick note. So, we are not a judicial board, to your point. We can't make determination of law. We can only take a determination of the law that is provided to us. So this applicant did go through the zoning board of appeals, and they went through a lot of steps to do that, I'm assuming. I was privy to some of that because I watched it on YouTube. And then I also know about the planning process here where we went through that. So here we are. So the output of the last meeting was, hey, there's some questions about some of the legal decisions or implications. So this board made the smart decision to refer to the town attorney and to get feedback from the town attorney, which we did. And the note that came back from the town attorney, and I'm just summarizing what I know, was there was, from his perspective, from a town legal perspective, and from an application perspective, there was not concern from his view on this application from the town legal perspective.
So I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So, ZBA, town attorney, everybody doesn't have an issue with it. This gentleman was here, I don't know, once or twice already regarding the runoff, and we went through all that. So what are we here for? To make a decision on legal issues? We can't do that. That's already done.
Correct. We are not we can't make a
Right.
decision on the law, and
Okay.
we can't make, but if there was any additional questions about runoff and traffic and,
Gotcha.
things of that nature that we typically do,
Right, understood.
that's what this board can do, but we cannot make a decision on law at this board. It's not our decision to make that. And we did cover some bases by getting the town attorney engaged, and we have feedback from him.
Right, so John, where we are is you're at the point where you're considering subdivision approval of a two-lot minor subdivision. So that's where we are.
So do we want like a little brief overview of runoff and all that kind of stuff, or do you guys remember what we did last time?
Well, we did review, is there anything from
Dave Smith, maybe?
anything new?
So I can clarify with respect to that, there were considerable technical comments with respect to this, including a number of comments from Mr. Smith's office regarding easement locations, stormwater management plans, and so forth. Virtually all of those technical site planning issues will be resolved by the end of the summer, maybe September. You'll sign off memos from Dave with respect to that. So the technical issues relating to the viability of the subdivision have been addressed.
So, and just to summarize, we have sign off from Dave Smith, which I've seen that note that has come out.
Yep.
So from a town engineering perspective, they have signed off on it.
Right,
So-
and just, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, there are a number of conditions that would have to be associated with this, the filing of the SWIP, stormwater management plans and so forth. So there are a number of typical conditions that would carry forward with this subdivision, and certainly with the building permits requirements.
Okay. So any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, so we are here for a public hearing, and we want to hear from the public, but I do want to set the parameter on this application, because though there may be some compelling conversations on legal concerns, this board can make a determination of those legal concerns. So we've relied on the town attorney to provide input, which he has done. So with that, I'm just teeing up the conversation. So with that being said, if you'd like to speak to the board on this particular application, please raise your hand. I'll give you a number. If you don't have a number, you can't speak. If you want to speak and you're not sure, raise your hand anyway. So we have 3 people who have raised their hand. We have 4 people raise their hand, so I'm going to go from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Can I have speaker number 1 come on up? Welcome. And just state your name and all of that for the record and where you're from.
Yes. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Sheridan. I'm the attorney with Snyder & Snyder, LLP, the attorneys for the Pagellos, who are a neighboring property owner. I guess I'd like to start off tonight by agreeing with you that you're not here to make legal decisions. However, you are here to make a decision based on the application, and the application is for a subdivision on an easement right-of-way. And there are requirements that are necessary to have that be in accordance with not only town law, but your code. And it is not the town attorney that interprets your code, it is the building inspector, which is why the town attorney in the short email that he sent said that the building inspector said that there's frontage. Now, what does that mean to this board? I'm not sure what it means to me. It's a very vague and broad statement. It does not address the concerns that we've raised with the 280A issue. In fact, in your town code and in the town law, there are requirements for 280A compliance. And those requirements have not been met by the applicant. The applicant has made statements that are incorrect and mischaracterizations. One of the things that the applicant did in front of the ZBA, which they keep going back to the ZBA, but they did not mention the fact that it was on an easement right-of-way. They consistently said to the ZBA that it was on a street or a road. It is not.
Were you there at that ZBA meeting?
I watched it on the video.
And did you write to the ZBA and tell them all this?
I watched that on video and I put it in my letter to this board, that the applicant's attorney represented to the ZBA that it was a road. So the issue of 280A was never brought in front of the ZBA. And the zoning board did not go out and find out for itself that this was an issue. It should have been raised by the applicant, should have been raised by the building inspector. It was not. The ZBA did not make a decision on this. It is not past due. It's not that the neighbors went back to the ZBA or challenged the ZBA decision because the ZBA decision did not consider the 280A
So,
issue. It
just
only
to-
considered the frontage.
Just to summarize, so your contention is that because the applicant didn't verbally say it was a right-of-way, that the zoning board interpreted that to be different than what was detailed to them in all the plans that were given to them.
I'm not saying that they didn't say it was right. I'm saying they affirmatively asserted to the ZBA that it was in fact a street or a road. And the ZBA decision does not mention the 280A issue. It does not mention
Okay.
that it is compliant with the 280A because the 280A has specific requirements. One of them is that it shows as a road or a street on a approved plat. You've seen the approved plat.
Yep.
It does not show as a road or a street. It specifically says easement right-of-way. So it does not meet that standard. Now, the building inspector can make an interpretation of that, and I'm not sure if he did based on the information you received from the town attorney, because all it says was has frontage. Does that mean it has the width of frontage? Is that what the building inspector looked at? Or did the building inspector look at has a width of frontage on a road, on a street? Or did he only look has frontage and stop there? I don't think this board can make a determination based on what it received from the town attorney, because it didn't receive it from the building inspector, first of all. It received it from the town attorney saying that the building inspector said this, whereas the building inspector is the interpreter of the code. You need to get something from the building inspector that says, I've reviewed this, and you also need to get something from the building inspector saying, this is how I interpret it based on our code, and to give you the reasoning behind it, not a very broad, very vague statement that does not give this board enough information to go ahead and make the decision to go ahead with this subdivision.
Bill, was in your letter here, you state that the building inspector, as well as both of them, Joe Briganti and Sal Pinelli, their interpretation was the same as Pat Cleary's, correct?
That's correct. I mean, we had a meeting.
Was that given to the gentleman?
What was given to them?
Their definition of all this?
Do we have it in writing, in other words?
I have a letter from Phil, I don't know if Pat, you agree
So I don't
with-
believe the building inspector ever sent you a determination.
Right.
Building inspector was present for the 2 or 3 times we were before the ZBA. He's the one who came up with this suggestion that we do it like this. And again, you know, we didn't hide anything. We didn't say anything about it. They knew exactly what it was there, okay? The neighbors came and spoke. We submitted all the deeds showing everything. They knew that it wasn't a public road, that it was an easement that was created in 1969.
No, I get that.
I didn't hide anything.
I get it, I'm just saying.
Hold on, guys, hold on, we're losing, this gentleman has the floor,
He has
so
the floor, but, you know,
just,
John has-
let's just bring it to a close if you can.
The most recent email says Joe Briganti, as building inspector, has determined there is proper frontage. That was submitted to this report. So maybe it's not a letter from him, but it identifies him and then it's proper frontage.
Okay, we're going to have you come back up, Phil.
That was my
If,
question.
I think, I want to make sure that whoever has the mic is the one who's speaking and not running all over the place, so my apologies.
No problem. So that is, I think, a very big issue, and I think something that needs to be resolved. And the fact that an email says, the building inspector says this, that's not a determination of the building inspector. That is who interprets your code and provides you with the guidance on how to proceed with matters. So the building inspector didn't provide an interpretation of the code. It didn't come from him. It came from somebody else saying it has proper frontage, and I can't tell you what that means. Maybe you have a better idea what proper frontage means globally. Does it mean, again, just that it has the width, or does it mean that it has the width on a road that is complying with the 280A issue? I don't see how this road is complying with the 280A issue. It's very clear in 280A that it has to be a road on a plat that's filed with the county. The plat that's filed that they keep referring to does not say road, does not say street, it says easement right-of-way. So it is not compliant with 280A, so I would like to see the building inspector's interpretation and be able to discuss that.
Have you reached out to the building inspector to get his interpretation?
my understanding was that there was a response coming from the town prior to putting this back on the calendar. That response came, what was it, the middle end of last week, when I received this email, which was very vague. And so that's where
Okay.
I came and submitted my response.
Okay.
That is one of several issues that I think are still outstanding for this matter. The second one is that, again, the zoning board of appeals never did that. We've again said that the easement has been abandoned. We provided you with information regarding how the easement has been abandoned. It's been abandoned in several ways, one of which was that plat that showed that the lots that are now 420 Nannyhagen Road have access directly to Nannyhagen, and that is on the easement there, saying that that's the way that the access should be obtained from that property. The additional traffic will overburden the existing right-of-way. There are currently 3 properties that use this right-of-way. There is 1 plus the New York City DEP that uses the other right-of-way. The New York City DEP has not done anything to that property. It's unlikely that they'll do anything to that property. So there's really only 1 property owner that uses the other easement. So now you're going to go 4 on this easement right-of-way that's that they're trying to make it go through, and only 1 on the other side. So you're going to make it 4 to 1. That is not spreading out the burden to these 2 easements. You have the ability to do that, and it would be appreciated from the neighbors if you could spread out the burden. Instead of 4 to 1, 3 to 2. This easement would still be more burden than the other easement. The subdivision lot sizes have varied. One of this board's requirements is to have a new survey. A new survey was not supplied. Mr. Grimaldi, in his latest letter attached, what I believe was the survey that's attached to the August plans. If you look at that survey, it clearly says several times by Daniel T. Merritz, the licensed land surveyor who made this map, to hereby certify that the survey upon which this map is based was completed in January 23, 2006, and that this map was completed on July 11th. It's a map. He says that the survey upon which this map was completed on January 23rd, 2006. It's almost 20 years ago.
So January 23rd, 2020, I'm sorry, what was that year?
2006.
2006.
So that's basically 19 years ago.
Yep.
So it's not an updated survey, which is one of this board's requirements. The proof of the required distribution, which Mr. Grimaldi did on Friday, goes to all those agencies, including the fire department, the water sewer. Whether that's something this board does, Mr. Grimaldi seemed to indicate it doesn't, but I think it's important for this. We need to know that these agencies have reviewed this application, have reviewed what's going to be done on this property, to see if they have any interest or have any concerns, and they should be able to provide those concerns to this board, and you should be able to have the applicant adjust its application accordingly. And I think you need to give time for these agencies to review the application and get back to you before making any decision. Mr. Grimaldi did indicate that he submitted a response letter. Just going through it quickly. Again, it's the building inspector that needs to make a determination, not the town attorney. The ZBA, he indicates, could not have granted a variance, let's consider Davis Drive to be a street. Again, because everybody was considering it a road or a street already, even though it's not and never has been. I think the ZBA didn't make a determination on that at all. There's a few other things that do not seem applicable. One of the things also is they're creating a 3rd lot, which is not compliant with any of the applicable requirements for a lot in this zone. So I'm not understanding how they're trying to create this 3rd lot. Who's going to be the owner of the lot? What is the purpose of this lot? It seems to be only carving out the easement right-of-way area, but it's not carving out the entirety of the easement right-of-way area, which could make it very confusing for those who are entitled to utilize the easement right-of-way area, like the neighbors. If you look even on this, you can see it better on the survey, but the easement right-of-way area actually goes over here. So they're carving out this lot somehow, which is, again, is not compliant with apparently any of the requirements. And this right here, this corner is the easement right of way. Now, one of the reasons why maybe they couldn't carve that out and couldn't make that part of that lot was because this lot right here is 40,001 square feet. And it's actually .067, it's not even .1. So that lot is 1 square foot more than is required in this district. If they carved out that corner, it would be much less, it would be much more than 1 square foot subtracted from that lot. So the lot would be non-compliant. They've had 3 different plans, 3 different numbers for the entirety of the property, which means that that 1 square foot, it's unclear to me, maybe it's clear to the board, but it's unclear to me that that is accurate. If the 3 plans that came in, 1 to the zoning board, 2 to this board, had different numbers for this, and they're compliant by 1 foot, and they say in one of their letters that, oh, it can shift based on surveys, it can shift based on this, how do we know that that can't shift 10 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet? All it needs is to shift 1.1 feet, and it will be a non-compliant lot. So I think a new survey is definitely necessary to confirm the size of the property, the location of the lines, not based on a survey that's 19 years old. That's all I have at the moment. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
No, thank you. I took some notes, but thank you for thorough review.
So in closing, I just think this board does not have the information it needs to make a decision on this. I think it needs information from the building inspector directly on his interpretation of the code. I think it needs a new survey to review it. I think it needs to wait to hear back any comments from those interested parties, the fire department, water sewer district. And I think once it has all of that information back, then it can make a determination as the planning board, not as an attorney, not as a legal, not as a town attorney, but as the planning board, to decide whether this subdivision is in fact a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Number 2. Welcome. Just state your name and your address for the record. Thank
Good
you.
evening. My name is Carmine Yannicino. This is my sister, Lisa Belmont. We have owned 412 Nannyhagen Road, which is the original home on the original property that started all of this back in 1970. My father passed away a year ago. He built that house. He was friends with Deckers Davidson. Deckers Davidson and him worked together on a plan to put a private road to access 2 more homes in the back. Everybody wants to use these terms of streets, roads, whatever you may want to call it. It is a driveway. If you've been on the road, you'll know. It's lucky it's maybe 15 feet wide. This is not a road, it is not a street, it's not on any map. This is strictly a right-of-way to give access to our 2 neighbors in the back. It's been a friendly relationship with the neighbors, and I think that this whole process has disrupted the entire neighborhood. We feel terrible about what's going on. I'm not here to talk to you about the legal ramifications. I'm here to talk to you about the emotional effects of this development. And I made a couple of notes, if I can just share it with you. So the first thing that comes to mind with any new development is the decreased value of our potential home. I want to be perfectly clear. Davidson Drive, we own Davidson Drive. 2/3 of it go over our property. It's not on the edge of our property and we stop. It is physically on our property. So whatever that percent is of that road for the length, it's at least 2/3 of the road. So the neighbors in the back have homes that are set back in the property. So their driveway comes out to Davidson Drive. We're the only property where the traffic goes by. The neighbors in the back and potentially this other proposed property.
It will help me to see on the map where your house is. Is it on that map?
Okay, let's see here. Where's Davidson Drive? Okay.
Where's Nannyhagen?
Nannyhagen is lower left, and
This is
that's
Davidson
Davidson there.
Drive
That's
here.
Davidson.
I think they're only showing
That's the existing house that your finger's on. The proposed house is above.
Okay, right, so we're over here.
Okay,
So this Davidson Drive comes out to Nantahagan.
so you're closer to Nantahagan.
Oh, yeah, we're
Yeah.
the first house. We're on the
Gotcha.
corner of Davidson and Nantahagan.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Everybody comes in over our property, past our property, to get to the homes in the back,
Yeah.
including the proposal, and the Davidsons never did that because they had their own driveway from 420. So we're concerned about the decreased value because of the potential traffic. A couple of points I'd like to make about that is, myself and our neighbors have homes that are roughly 4 bedrooms, okay? Eventually, all of us will eventually potentially sell a property as we get older. These homes are meant for children. There is enough bedrooms, we all have an acre. I played on that road, I rode my bike on the road, I played with my friends, my sisters. Ultimately, after us, there will be more families with children. To add another home is just going to add more traffic, and I really believe it's going to decrease the value of the property. Yes. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the increased traffic. Back in 1970, my father built the road, and then eventually 2 homes came in the back. Deckers Davidson, I believe, was happy with that setup. He had his original house with some land around it. There's a big pool on the property, and I think he was happy with that setup. Back then, there was no Amazon trucks, there was no FedEx trucks, there was no UPS trucks. And those are the types of vehicles that are going to come through that road. Not necessarily for us, because we do have a front driveway, but it could be deliveries for the back homes, including the proposed house. How are you going to do that with potentially some children playing on the street? I am concerned about the activity, and we haven't even talked about the construction traffic, because the road itself is not in great shape. There is a stream that goes through that property, underneath the road, through our property, down to the reservoir. Okay? Heavy traffic will cause that pipe underneath the road to get some serious damage. And it's not so much for cars, but it would be with construction vehicles, with tractors and trailers and construction bulldozers, things like that. So there's going to be some considerable damage to the property itself. So that was the other point, was the damage to the right-of-way, which is the pipe. And again, overall, I think there's a just disruption in the neighborhood, and I don't know if we really, I mean, they have a right to buy the home, they fixed up the home, they have a right to sell that home. It's a beautiful property with 2 acres. I don't know why they couldn't just leave well enough alone and sell it as is with a pool and 2 acres. But no, they had to go and carve it up to try to get the maximum value out of that property. Now, the problem with that is, we have been there since 1970, built the house in 70, so we moved in 71. The builder is going to sell that house. They're going to potentially develop this other lot, and then they're gone. They have no other connection to this property other than it was a transaction to them. It's still emotional for us because it's our home, it's our neighborhood. So we are concerned, and I'm not trying to say we wouldn't be friendly, but the fact of the matter is on a 15-foot wide road, we just don't need more additional traffic. And we're very concerned over that, so.
And they have access on 420 to do this.
Okay.
That's been pointed out already.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Just finished my notes. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for coming out tonight.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, speaker number 3. 4.
I'm 4. Hi, my name is Ellie Calabro. I live on 5 Davidson Drive. I live in the house where the circle is. Since I was last here, my husband would have been here, but he had open heart surgery last
sorry to
month.
hear that.
So he's not able to be here, but he would be here. And my concern is with, if we need medical attention with ambulance and things like that come through, we have to have access. I can't, when they were building when they were refurbishing their property down there, they parked all over Davidson Drive with no regard to all of us, that we had to maintain the road. They didn't maintain the road. We maintained the road. They made messes. They dug up part of the blacktop. They didn't fix
And I'm
it.
sorry,
We
so
fixed it.
during what process?
During his renovation for that house.
His renovation, gotcha.
So I just think it's overburdening for us. we try, as a team, all three of us, to take care of the road and do what we have to do to maintain it, cut trees, all the maintenance stuff of it. But nobody offered to help us or to make that property look better after they did the construction. They just left it. They left it in a mess. So I could just see with them coming through Davidson Drive, going down to that property, what a mess it's going to be, with everything. And then, like, if we need emergency services or anything like that, how are we going to get vehicles in and out of there? Because it's not a road, a regulated road. It's a driveway. We made the road wider on our side because it was just a driveway right into our property because we were in the circle. But we widened it so that we can have, like, the trucks, not, like the UPS trucks, the Amazon trucks, the mail truck turnaround in our driveway, so it's not, it's more conducive. The next thing...
We're on the end of Davidson Drive.
So we're in the circle.
The last house. You're the last house?
No, I'm like the second house, and then Gerard is the number 6, would be the house all the way down.
Gotcha.
So the other thing is that with the sign that said private road, we had some construction on Nanahagan Road. They were doing some water work, and all the construction people and everybody were parking and disrupting the road. I mean, really, they were parking on the grass. I mean, it was just horrible. And then it would rain. It was a muddy mess. So I called Beckwith's office, the highway department. I said, can you put a sign up there so people know that this is a private road or something so that they don't come in and out of here? Like, because they really can't park there. They were just parking there. And then for some reason, I don't know what happened, but the sign disappeared. So then I called again and I says, can you put it, because not for anything. I says, there's people sleeping on my road here. There's people outside sleeping, thinking that they can park there. I had to wake the guy up. I'm like, what are you doing here? He says, oh, well, my shift ended. I says, well, this is kind of like a private area. He goes, well, there's no sign that says that. And so I called the highway department. I says, can you replace the sign so that they know that this is not...
And what does the current sign say?
Right now, it says private road.
Gotcha.
But I don't know if they have a right-of-way sign. I don't know if they had anything else. I told I told him what my concern was, and he put the private road sign up, because people were coming in and out
So
of
he
there.
did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
He did. So, that was my concern. The other thing is that we have no garbage service on our road, so we have to bring it all out to Davidson, to Nanahagan Road. So we have 3 families putting it on Nanahagan Road, but on somebody else's property, somebody else's property. So I don't know what 4 people with the garbage would look like over there, because it's hard to just pull out and look, when you're coming out of Davidson. I don't know if you came down there or if you drove by. If you came coming in and out, it's not the greatest visibility. So with garbage piled up, it's a problem. It's a big problem with the garbage.
Okay. I'm hearing everything you're saying. I'm just taking some notes.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, I'm just, I feel bad. I wouldn't mind the house. I just don't like the fact that they got to come through Davidson Drive. They should be coming through Nanahagan Road, because it would be less of a burden on us, and it would be like sharing the burden. You know what I mean? Because we still have a house, but they would have their entrance. And since they sold part of their lot to DEP, that should not be our problem. That should be their problem.
Right. Okay.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And thank you for coming out, and thank you to everybody who did come out. I mean, there were some very thoughtful and interesting and compelling discussions, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask the board for their thoughts and reflections and any additional comments that they have, and then I'm going to have the applicant come join us as well. Any questions or comments or thoughts from board members at this time?
Seems to me we need an official letter from the building department.
Okay.
Pat, were you in that meeting with the building inspector?
I've been in...
With Joe, right? Joe Bergerti?
I was never in a meeting with Joe, but we've talked. We've been in many meetings on this application over the years.
And
And the reason you don't want to go out on Nijmegen Road is?
why don't you come up, Mr. Grimaldi?
You could let Robert explain it.
There's a couple reasons. I mean, I think first and foremost, we also own part of Davidson Drive, right? So we feel like we have the right to use it, and feel like it's better access for us. And the second reason, Zoning Board of Appeals, we had to go before them 2 or 3 times, sorry if I don't remember, because they made us explore that, because I think Zoning Board of Appeals is obligated to explore all options, right, to not burden the neighbors. And we went to DEP. DEP actually owns that driveway for 420, like 80% of it. And DEP said that would, they'd have to redo the whole easement. It changes the purpose of the easement. That easement's only for the main house, not for a further house. So we don't even own the driveway or easement that they're suggesting we use. However, we did explore that anyway, and we were told no. So, I mean, the more likely scenario is to use, you know, what we do own and what we believe we're legally able to use.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Is there any type of home, HOA there or anything like homelessness?
I could let them answer. I've had some conversations with them before. It got maybe a little contentious. They
Right.
don't have anything formal. When I was speaking with them, I said, first and foremost, we actually suggested to this board, the resolution, if and when we get there, should suggest that this new home absolutely shares. It'll be 1/4 then. Right now, it's 3. They absolutely should say this home shares the maintenance of that road, and they should establish an HOA. But
Do you have any plan on upgrading that road with this 2 lots?
we don't have any plan on upgrading it. We definitely recommend
Then
it.
maybe it couldn't have got so contentious, then maybe if you made a little upgrade to it, it might have helped everybody?
So I actually went to the neighbors after the last planning board meeting, and I said, you know, what's going on here? Is it about the road? What is it about? And he said, we just don't want a house there. Nothing else is going to make us happy.
That's not what I heard. I heard they don't have a problem with a house.
I know, it's been gone back and forth, Mr. Piazza. I agree with you. So we, you know, part of my notes is saying, we're open to all this. We want to trim, you know, the trees kind of, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but when they're leaning on you, it makes you feel smaller. We said, we'll trim all the trees back. We'll survey the condition of the road. You know, we're open to maybe, you know, making, you know, improvements maybe after the construction, right? If we
Right.
do damage it, or maybe if we don't damage it.
How,
yeah.
is there drainage on this road? Nothing? So maybe if, you know, I'm just speaking for one board member, not for everybody, but if you want to do some type of upgrade to that road, and I'm not saying reinvent the wheel here, but, you know, if there's a problem with that road, it's been there since, I don't know when this gentleman said.
1970.
Yeah, okay. So maybe you can do a coating or whatever the case may be to kind of ease it, but the main thing for us, this board, is to hear what the building inspector's interpretation is. If he says it's good to go, it's good to go. We really, I know, I heard it's emotional, I get it, but I need that, we need that interpretation.
I just want to address that because I think it's a disingenuous way to get it back before the ZBA. And let me tell you what I mean. Now, we met with Joe Briganti, and we met with him twice, and he's the one who suggested this. Now, it's not the building inspector, it's the ZBA who's the ultimate interpreter of the board. Now, council knows that if you ask for an interpretation from the building inspector and he gives it to you, he has 30 days to appeal that. And we're going to be right back before the ZBA again, and we're going to go around in a circle. That's why he's asking you to do that. Now, Joe Briganti sat through 2 ZBA meetings. He sat with us at 2 separate meetings. He could have said, look, this is not a street. You have to come in pursuant to 288. He never said that. Now you're asking me to go back to him, get an opinion, then he's going to appeal it after 30 days. We're going to have to go back before the ZBA. This is going to go on forever. We had that determination made. It was made by the ZBA. The ZBA said, this is your street. You have to go 85 feet from the center line of that street. That's where your frontage is. You have 72 feet of width. You need 100 feet. I can't go back and get an opinion that he's going to now appeal, and we're going to be right back before the ZBA again. You know, again, I'm sorry it's so emotional for some people, but but, you know, we're not putting 14 houses, we're putting one additional house there, that's it. And the two people in the back, they will virtually no impact on them, because our cars will turn in there, they don't even go anywhere near those two houses. So, you know, again, we were very transparent. We were very transparent. We had 2 meetings with the ZBA. We set out in detail our position. Nobody, not the planner, not the building inspector, nobody said you can't use this road under 280A because 280A has to apply. Okay, we sent all the old deeds, we showed the easements, so I don't know what more we could have done. If the neighbors didn't agree, they could have filed an Article 78 against the ZBA. They did not do so. Now, council says, well, let's get an opinion from the building inspector, so then he could appeal it to the ZBA, and then we could be back here again, going around in circles, and it's not fair to us, okay? You can't give them a second bite at the apple. They had ample opportunities to bite the apple.
Can I just say one more thing, too? And I don't want to get into hearsay. I know what's in writing is in writing. When Darius sent that email saying Joe Briganti, building inspector, decided, Joe Briganti called me that day and said, you know, why is Darius coming back to me? We talked about this already. And I told him because this board asked for a legal opinion. So I understand, it seems almost like semantics to say he didn't write the email. He was with Darius. They talked about the 2 issues, frontage, legal right to use the easement, and wrote that email.
So Pat, what do we need here? Is it true that the ZBA already approved this?
The
And
ZBA granted the variances based on that road.
I mean, I would think the ZBA went through their extensive process of detailing everything they detailed, and I'm sure they had all of the material that this board had, and probably more, with detailing the topography, the right-of-way versus the roads versus... We will not be shouting... Now, let me make this perfectly clear. This meeting has to run with order. You had a chance to talk. We will not be shouting from the back. Understood? Thank you. So they did have the material, I would assume. And I would have to think at some point, how many members on that board? I always forget, 7? 5, excuse me, 5. 5 people reviewed all their material.
Supported by the building inspector and the town attorney.
Right. So it's, I mean, that is to be noted. I mean, the ZBA is the ZBA, and they have professional people who are on that board who have been doing it for years.
And when the applicant was last before you, you asked to confirm that position, you asked for the town attorney to give you his opinion. You didn't ask for the building inspector to provide an opinion. You asked for the town attorney to sort of summarize what the zoning board had done, and was it done properly? And that's what Mr. Shafazada gave you.
Okay.
Let me just say this. Those cover letters that I sent to the ZBA, they were sent to Mr. Shafazada, the town attorney, way before we consulted him about this. So nobody said, not the town attorney, not the building inspector, not anybody on the board said, hey, wait a minute. This is not a road, as that term is used in town law or whatever. You have to come in under 288. Nobody said that. Nobody said that to us. And they're, again, the ultimate interpreters of the code, okay? And the town attorney gives advice on the law. Nobody told us you got to come in under 280A1. And our position is we don't have to because it's a road.
Okay. All right. Any other, I have a couple of questions, but I'll hold off. Any other comments or questions from board members?
I have 2 referencing comments by Mr. Sheridan. One is regarding it being a survey, not a survey, but a map based on a 2006 survey. Is that adequate, or is that something that must be?
So the survey, we require updated surveys when conditions around the survey change. So property boundaries did not change. There was no need to update the 20-year-old.
So one more time on that, because that was one of my questions. I just want to make sure I understand that.
So we don't require a new survey with every submission. We require confirmation that the survey that exists is accurate.
Understood. Thank you.
And the other thing that he mentioned was a third lot. This is, my understanding, it's a 2-lot subdivision. Can you address that?
What is, Ms. McLean, is we did not use this for our lot calculations because we used it for frontage. So we had the frontage here. So at the suggestion of the building inspector, he said, leave Davidson Drive out of the lot area calculation so you could use it as your frontage. Now, we didn't create a lot because a lot is defined in the code as something where that has a building on it or is
planning to have a building on it, so it's not a lot. We didn't create a lot. There's no lot there. We still own it, we're still going to pay taxes on it, but it's not a lot, okay, because it can't be built upon. We're just not including it in our second lot or first lot here, or really a second lot, because we want to use this portion here for our frontage, okay? We have more frontage than if we didn't use it.
So you will own that
We still continue
and
to own
maintain
it.
an easement over it for the neighbors to the back?
Yes, and we can't block it in any way, and I don't know what he's talking about. A small portion of the lot includes Davidson Drive, but we already own it anyway, so just because now it's in this lot number 2 here, we're not going to block it in any way. We can't do that. We know we can't do that. There's a small triangle here that's part of Davidson Drive. It's over here. But we're not going to block that in any way. We're not going to obstruct it in any way just because it's part of Lot 2. We understand that there's an easement there, and we can't block it in any way.
He indicated that the square footage is very close. The only reason it is because we also own this. However, it's not in this lot. This 4,361 square feet is the proposed right-of-way area that will be dedicated to new Lot 2. It's just not in the lot square footage calculation. Once again, seems a little convoluted, but it was at the
The overall
request of the
parcel
town.
is something like 87,000 square feet, or?
If you include Davidson Drive, it's probably close to, just over 87,000, because the right-of-way is 4361.
And we're at 83, so.
Okay.
So we'd be at 87.
I'm saying without, plus the.
Okay. Eileen, any other questions?
No.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, a couple things I just want to identify. The stream under the road, I know the town engineer looked at that, so, and that was that bridge in the,
In the front, not by the back lot at all.
so he looked at the one in the front, not the one in the back? Okay. And then, okay, just really quick, I'm buying that house, it was built, hypothetical, and I'm buying this house, and I'm from the Upper East Side, all right, and I just bought this house, I don't know anything about the suburbs, I don't know anything about this road situation. How do we convey to that new homeowner that the garbage, all these other kinds of things, the maintenance of the road, the snow plowing, all the stuff, how is that conveyed to the new homeowner?
To my understanding, I'm pretty sure currently, since they don't have an HOA-style agreement, it's in everyone's deeds, the maintenance of that road. So I'm not going to profess that I'm an expert at that part, but my understanding it would be in the deed. However, I don't think anyone here could mandate it, but it's our recommendation. We establish an HOA with, the new house included in it, so there's no ambiguity when someone moves in. But it would be in the deed to share the maintenance of the road.
Mr. Grimaldi, is that true, being in the deed?
No, I don't believe it would be in the deed. What it is when you do a title search, it will say Davidson Drive is a private road, okay, but it'll ensure their access over Davidson Drive. So if they see it's a private road, well, obviously they're going to have to ask, how do we get garbage? How do we get the snow plowing? It's something that we have already disclosed. Somebody is interested in buying the original house there. We've already disclosed to them that Davidson is a private road, and if they use that for access, they're not going to have, garbage and snow removal.
So one thing I've learned a couple things on the planning board. I learned you have to be abundantly and overly clear.
Yes.
In this position, as well as when property is involved, because I don't want to be, I think, or I guess, or probably kind of a situation. I want to make sure if anybody moves into that house, wherever the road is, which way this board goes, that they understand their obligation, if there is any obligations, and how it is maintained, and the garbage and all the good stuff. So how do we navigate through that?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer the analogy of those resolutions you just looked at for Kensico Estate, Kensico Preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Conditions of approval, private road, private garbage collection, private snow, those are conditions of approval. In that resolution, it says that will be reflected in a homeowners association. You can establish those same conditions of approval that would apply to this subdivision and say, put it somewhere in a deed in a homeowners association. You guys figure it out. I don't think you would care what legal device embeds that, but your approval condition mandates that it's private, the town would not be from our perspective, it said, we're not responsible for that stuff. That's why it's in the resolution.
We just have to be really, I'm going to say it one more time, because I find the more I say, the more it maybe sinks into everybody who's here. We have to be abundantly clear on that topic. The other thing I just want to point out too is, it is a compelling conversation, is we did a distribution to the public services on Friday. There's no point in doing that distribution if we don't give them time to respond, in my opinion. There has to be some measure of time, a couple of weeks, a month, 30 days, 20 days, 21 days. But I would think we need to allow them to respond to that communication, and fairness to them, because otherwise there's no point in sending the letters.
Right. And you wouldn't be taking action on this evening in any event.
So,
We can't really, compel the existing residents of the neighborhood to form a homeowners
You could not,
association.
I don't think you could.
And we
It
have
would
no-
require the cooperative.
But so I move in from the Upper East Side, and I've got my check for 10 grand for my portion of the maintenance of the road. Who should I make it out to? What do we do? But the town and the town planning board can go, oh, that's a private issue. But I understand Jim's point, how do we memorialize this formally so that when they come knocking on the town's door and say, why are my neighbors looking for money from me, or I have, how do we help them out, even if it's not our obligation?
Absolutely a fair point to ask, and the response is asked Mr. Grimaldi.
Yeah, I mean, we've said from the start that we're willing to contribute to the cost of maintenance of the road, snow plowing, whatever. And we're not the only private road in town. Eton Road, right down the street, is a private road, and the neighbors all contribute to the maintenance. So it's not like it's an insurmountable issue. I mean, it could very easily be done.
We do have private roads private properties that maintain private roads that are not maintained by HOA. It's just a minimum.
People kick in.
Yes, like Burnsdale Avenue off Lakeview Avenue, that is a private road, but there is and there's only, I forget, 4 or 5, maybe 6 houses down there. But there was some sort of agreement at some point for those homes, and I don't want to be, I think we could, maybe we should. I think, to your point, we should be a little bit more definite about what we're going to do. Because now I'm moving from the Upper East Side, and I have no idea about road maintenance, not that they don't know anything about road maintenance, but they may not. But the plowing and the maintenance of that road and their obligation, because it's an obligation when you live on a street like that.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I would offer is I would not recommend that you tell them how to do this, but you can say, do this. Tell me what you've done at the end of the day, so that there is some form of agreement in place to ensure that works. And the form of that agreement, I don't think you would care, as long as there's some form of agreement.
Can I ask a question? What do you do now? What do you guys do now? What do you do now?
We split everything. We work together and we split the snow plowing.
Yeah.
And we road work that we
You get to, so you split the snow plowing, the garbage. Oh, the garbage gets brought up to the top, right?
There is no private garbage that comes in, takes up on the road, on somebody else's property, it's not even our property.
I got it.
That's how small the road is.
So you would be just adding another person to that, right?
Yeah, we'd be adding another person there.
And
Also, don't forget too, we own a big chunk of that road, so we'd be required to maintain it anyway. We own it.
1 second.
We own it.
Yeah, 1 second. We'll have you come up. Just give me a second.
So it's our property, we have to maintain
Okay,
it
so-
anyway. So, but whatever the cost is, we'd be willing to split it with this.
So Phil, can I ask you to just sit for one moment, and we're going to have one person from the audience just counterbalance that one conversation. Just bear with me 1 second. I don't want everybody up here together. It's not a good idea.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Grimaldi. All right, can I just have one person, you just want to enumerate that one conversation? Okay, so this conversation is specific to the right-of-way of the road, whatever, or Davidson, whatever, however we want to term it, and who owns what. So what is your understanding?
Gerard Pagello, 6 Davidson Drive. I'm not sure what you're asking me. Could you
How do you
ask
do
me
the
again?
homeowners association? How do you send out a bill? You have a regular contract with a plow company, or?
So, we are the new people, and we've been there 25 years. We have split everything a third, maintenance of the road, trimming of the trees, filling the potholes, snow plowing.
But who keeps track of it? Who sends out a letter and says, hey, you got...
We're all friends. We have a friendly relationship. We're all people of our word. And we've had absolutely no issues or problems in 25 years. I'm unhappy that we have not another potential homeowner that will be involved, but a business that will be involved. These are developers.
Okay, so I want to
They sold the
We're going
property.
to stick to specifically,
Okay.
we're not going to go down this way. I asked you to come up to speak specifically about the operation of Davidson Road, so that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So you're saying that the neighbors split everything. So if one of you neighbors sell your house, one of you sell your house, how is that going to work? Like, you sell your house.
In all of our deeds, it says that we, each of those properties is responsible for 1/3 of the upkeep and the
Okay,
maintenance
so this is
of the right-of-way.
So it's a little bit more formulaic than the other neighbors, and we chip in. That may be true, but there's also something immortalized somewhere, right, in those deeds, correct?
You have copies of the deeds?
Your deeds I'm talking about.
Yes, I have copies, deeds printed out, everybody has them. It clearly states, as our attorney has submitted to you, our deeds, and it says 1/3.
Gotcha, thank you.
Upkeep and maintenance. Can I add something?
Sure.
It is beyond belief that those 3 people, when they got their deeds and easement, were going to pay for 1/3 of the upkeep and maintenance of that right-of-way forever and ever if Deckers-Davidson decided to subdivide his property down the road. He had 3 acres, and it was clear to the Yannikinos, who've been there from the beginning.
So your deed has 1/3, right?
It's correct.
Their house has 1 deed.
Correct.
4
1/3.
houses, right? That's all I need to know.
Okay.
That's all I need to know, because I wanted to find out specifically how it was mortalized, and what I was hearing initially was, it was more of a nice, which is great, an agreement with the neighbor. Let me finish.
Okay.
But it's also underpinned by some documentation as well, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And that's it. We addressed that question, because I want to make sure that we had that understood.
If this subdivision is approved and this lot is built, do the deeds of the current owners need to be changed from 1/3 to 1/4?
That's a good question. I would suppose they would.
Or do I move from the Upper East Side and say,
or-
thanks, everybody, for taking care of my road, you know, like?
Well, that's a good
That's how it
question. I
reads
think-
right now.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the way it is right now.
yeah.
Yeah, if I were the other 2, I would want my share to be reduced accordingly based
Yeah.
on the new guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you would assume that would be modified.
So you're asking us to change our deeds, and you're asking us
No,
to
no.
form a homeowners association,
Number one,
I believe.
This board has not asked you to do anything. What we're doing now is a process, and we're asking questions about what you're doing today. This board has not asked you to form a homeowners association. This board has not asked you to change your deeds. We're trying to do an exploratory conversation about what is happening today. Understood?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. One final question. This whole garbage thing does not stick well with me. And not from you, just not from me, generally. So I'm from the Upper East Side, this poor person from the Upper East Side, and I bought this house, and I have a whole bunch of garbage, and I walk down Davidson Road, and I dump it somewhere, and that's being dumped on someone's property. Like, how do we manage that? Because now, if that was my house, and I'm a lunatic with my lawn, and somebody was dumping garbage on my lawn, I would not be happy. So how does how does that work? And I guess that's really more a question for the applicant than for you, Mr. Cleary, but that is something else I think we need to navigate too.
So
Like,
right now, all these houses are putting their garbage on somebody else's property.
Or the right, I don't know that it's somebody else's property, maybe the
Oh.
right of way, I don't know.
Okay.
But typically, when you approve something like this, you make a provision for the joint placement of the trash receptacle area that DPW finds acceptable in an appropriate location.
okay, thank you. So that is something we would have to figure out, Mr. Grimaldi, the garbage spot. Because we don't want to approve an application where the provision is that we're going to be putting bags on somebody else's property, right? No. No. Okay, thank you. Come on up, Mr. Grimaldi.
To answer your question, there's, on every public street, there's a right-of-way of at least 10 feet. So if we put the garbage there, it wouldn't be on anyone's property, it would be on the
That's not
town's right-of-way.
an acceptable answer. Here's why.
Why?
Because every house, yes, every house in Mount Pleasant, as far as I know, has a right-of-way. If anybody put garbage bags on my first 10 feet of my property, it would not be a good conversation, right? So we have to be realistic with that. So, we have to come up with a provision for the garbage removal and where the sanitation department can remove this garbage where it's safely put out of the way, and we're not building a condition where they're putting garbage in the right-of-way, because now you're asking me to say that's okay.
Well, I mean, if we have to put it in front of our driveway and they want to walk however many feet to pick it up, we could do that as well. I mean, if that's something that, would please the board. I mean,
And it's not pleasing the board, we're trying to make good neighbors, right? Because we want to make sure that we're not building conditions that people are going to be arguing and calling the town.
So just to be clear, we want the new lot, right, garbage for the new lot. I mean, we can't, they're doing what they're doing with their garbage already, right?
There's one house that's been there, right? There's one house that's been there, correct? This is for the new lot, one.
Right, so
new lot,
just the
right?
garbage for the new lot.
The other house has been there.
Yeah, so I think.
And where you been putting your garbage? Same place everybody else has? Top of the
No,
right
you
away?
go out to
that's
the end of the driveway on
That's
Nanahagan.
Nanahagan,
Yeah.
that's the only driveway. So we're, as part of a condition, or however you phrase it, to find a suitable spot for the garbage for this new lot.
But I would want it on the survey.
We could,
Right, I think we would have to have it documented somewhere, not just in a resolution, but also here, because to me, that's a sticking point, because again, that would be problematic. Because houses change. All these houses are going to change. Everyone here, at some point, myself included, we all sell our houses, and we have new people coming in, and there's no record. I mean, they don't have any record now either, it appears. So if you sold your house, this house is not built, someone's going to get mad at some point in the future that this is happening. So we have to figure out a way.
Typical response to this is to provide on the improvement plans a location for a trash receptacle.
Yep, and that's what we need, I think.
But also, if this is going over in front of 400 Nanahagan, like a trash receptacle, now instead of just having garbage there, not just, but they're having garbage there, now they've got a receptacle on what is effectively their front lawn, even if it is the public right-of-way. So,
Eileen, it's a good point. You can make a decision, maybe it's the garbage spot, that's where you put the cans, as opposed to a formal structure in one way or another. You've done it both ways.
I'm just thinking when there's a new owner of 400 Nanahagan, they might feel very differently. But, okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I just feel like you guys are gonna build this house and then you walk away. And someone from the city or wherever is gonna move in and they're gonna be left to have to figure this all out.
So the one thing I'll say, Mr. Hickey, is, people use real estate attorneys, right? I mean, a private road is flagged right away by any decent, any real estate attorney, and they better advise their client that it's a private road and of the maintenance. However, anything in this resolution, we will walk away, right, eventually. That is why, it's my understanding, things get put in a resolution and get put in titles and deeds, because those live forever. So things we decide here, even when we walk away, should not be lost. They will all be memorialized somewhere.
So, right, because I'm hearing there's deed restrictions on the deeds that are in place already for third, a third, and a third, and now we're going to add a new mathematical formula to it with a fourth. So that's a sticky wicket that needs to be solved, I think. And then also the garbage immortalization, I think, needs to be solved. And also, I think to solve, we need to make sure we give adequate time for the public utilities or public service, excuse me, to respond to that note that they go out on Friday. So any other questions or comments from board members? So what is the pleasure of the board on this public hearing? We could do two things. We can keep the public hearing open. We can do a number of things, but we leave the public hearing open. We can close the public hearing. We can close the public hearing with public comment. You guys know the skill and drill. What is the pleasure? That's something I need you guys to lean into.
Maybe we want to leave the public hearing open so that the public can comment on the communications that we get from public services.
Okay. Any
Is
other?
that a motion?
I don't know, because I feel like we've heard everything we need to hear, but we haven't heard everything from Cydia, from the town staff, so we don't know if, they say something that the public might want to respond to.
Well, if we close the public hearing, we'll trigger a deadline.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We'll come back to you in a second, Eileen. Any other questions or comments?
So just to clarify, if you chose to close the public hearing tonight, you'd have to render a decision within 60 days. Theoretically, our circulation is typically 30 days to involved agencies. So within the 60-day period, you would get comments back. The issue is the public wouldn't be able to then comment on that information.
So if we leave the public hearing open, there was a couple open items that we did talk about, which was, is some immortalization of, or documentation of the garbage situation, right?
And that would be something shown on the plan.
Which would then need to be shown on the plan. I'm losing my memory now.
The deeds would be a condition of approval. You wouldn't review deeds necessarily. That's not your job.
No, but we would have to figure that out.
The applicants would have to figure
Well,
that out. You can
correct.
make it their responsibility to figure that out.
Meaning, you need to figure that out with
Yes.
the third, a quarter, and that needs to be discussed. And then the public service conversation. Anything, John?
Yeah, public service comments from who is that?
It's the other involved agencies.
We notified them on Friday,
Fire department and water sewer district.
because here's the
You
issue.
notified them, I'm sorry.
Yep. Yep.
You interpreted that they notified them on Friday?
Correct. I know they
We
did.
haven't heard back from them.
No, well, I heard back from one person, but here's the thing now. I've been practicing before this board for 30 years, and we've never had the distribution chain. I know it's in the subdivision regs, but this is a minor subdivision. So, again, I sent out the notice, and it's fine if you want to
And
hear
I
that.
know, for lack of a better, I know it's disappointing.
Yeah.
But there is no point in sending notifications to the public services unless we give them ample time to respond.
I agree. It's
And
fine.
it may be minor to you, but it's major to them.
When I said minor, I meant a minor subdivision. It's a two-lot subdivision.
so like-
You have major subdivisions that are...
So they need to review the fire hydrants, if there are any. I have no idea what's up there, to be honest.
Yep.
So let them review that, do their due diligence, and we get these other things, because you still have a little bit more legwork to do anyway, with the garbage and the deed conversation, right?
Yeah.
So let's get that documented.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'm saying the same thing over a couple times.
I'll make a motion, we continue the public hearing.
Motion.
Just put that to bed.
Can I just
Motion.
say one thing? I'm sorry. Is there any way to I just feel like,
Yeah.
it's obviously, it's frustrating, right? It's obvious, right? Is there any way to limit the public hearing to these items? Because I just feel like it's the same thing.
Nope.
Over and over. So
Nope.
it stays open, they bring
Nope.
up the same issues.
Public hearing's a
next
public
time.
hearing. It could be from this or to that.
You understand what I'm saying?
And it could go on forever, theoretically, but,
But it won't.
But
No, you understand what I'm saying.
So-
You said you want to keep it over.
I would recommend not selling past the sale, if you will. So, okay, so we have a motion from Joan,
Second.
second from Eileen. Walter? Aye. Jane?
She's not here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see- Oh, sorry, Jane. John? Eileen? Joan?
Aye.
Keep you guessing, and me.
Do
Aye,
you
for me.
know when the next meeting is by any chance? December 5th? Well, that's not too far away, is it?
No.
That's up to you and her.
Right, 2 weeks, all right.
But I stay in my swim lane with scheduling meetings. That's your swim lane. So, okay, can we have a motion to close the meeting?
We certainly do.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Opposed, then stay here.